I'm Alexander Shunnarah again. I been practicing law 28 years, about half my life. It's been one great journey. It's just who I am and what I do. Been fortunate and been blessed in this space. We're headquartered in Birmingham, Alabama, and we have 3 practice areas. Mostly it's personal injury, mass torts, and property casualty. I'm a partner with 4 other firms. I want to give a shout out to Larry Nussbaum in our Boston office, Galen Hare, we do property and casualty, and Robert Sugar in Ohio, we do personal injury, and also we are in other states. And to my partner, Tyler Vale, who's in Birmingham working on those mass tort cases.
So we're going to be going through a few things. Quickly, the early days of traditional marketing, the billboard strategy, our transition to digital, and where we're going in the future.
Well, look, I mean, in this presentation, they asked me to talk about how it kind of started. I started again in 2001. And, back then, I didn't have any money. I didn't have very much. I had 8 little cases. Didn't have any help for a couple of years. But my goal was to get 1 case a day, settle 1 case a day, and send out a demand every day. We started off with just the traditional business cards, did a little swag items, magnets on your refrigerator, and then I started with the phone books. And the phone books were cheap back then. I never got the back cover, but they were good. And then I ended up getting into nighttime television. It was really funny. You could buy one for like $5, and you could get another one free for $5. But it was only like from midnight till like 4:59. Eventually, did a little radio. Radio was okay. I hit the demographics. I hit mostly the urban community in Birmingham. Around 2007, 2008, when the mortgage crisis hit, I felt that print was dying. And so I did some research on some billboards. And I wanted to know why corporate America did it. And what I learned was pretty interesting. And I don't know about other states, but in Alabama, they didn't have billboards. They had billboards, but they didn't have any lawyers doing billboards. And, some of the things I learned was that it has something called a ping factor that consciously or subconscious, it, will ping your brain. 7 words or less, keep it clean. If you keep them up long enough, year 2 is better than year 1, year 3 is better than year 2. And then eventually, it's supposed to build a brand. And that's what billboards really are.
We want to show y'all something. We talked about the billboards. He's talking about billboards, but he mentions, he got into television as well. And one of my favorite ads we ever ran, and I wish we would bring it back, is this ad. And he's shaking his head because he's like, we'll never bring this back. But I remember watching these ads during, when I was up as a teenager till like 2 and 3 in the morning, like playing video games. Bongo would come on at 2 in the morning. And so we're going to let y'all watch this briefly.
So just a little about the ad. So finally around 2000, right around the billboards, we also, the firm had grown up 8 or 9 years. At that time, it probably only had 7 or 8 lawyers. We presently, with all the partners, have 150 lawyers, maybe more. Mitch, you probably knows.
About 180, 190, nationwide across all our partners.
Well, I'm ashamed that I didn't know we had 40 more lawyers,
it's a lot to keep up with.
I mean, they get hired and fired every day. It's really sad. But in terms of, I was with a digital agency. It was one of the first digital agencies that I used. And it was out of Dallas, and they said, hey, we're doing a shoot, you need to come in. And the last thing I ever expected to meet was Bongo the monkey. And it's just kind of been a joke, and it's kind of been with us, but it ran for about probably a year in Alabama.
So here's Bongo.
We're too busy singing to put anybody down.
If a careless driver is monkeying around and you get hurt in a car wreck, call me. I'm attorney Alex Shunnarah. Car wreck? Call in the attorney who fights hard to get you the money you deserve.
Boy, I hope you've got good insurance.
Thank you. I think it's a great ad, personally.
To be very honest, that's when I learned that being a lawyer is sometimes not really being a lawyer. It's being it. You're willing to do things that you feel like that, and there's a little part of me that still has that, blue-blooded. We're a firm. I guess you're taught those things in law school, but I quickly figured out that from about that point moving forward that all things are off and we have to do whatever we have to do to get some cases in the door.
And obviously, as years went on, I started at the firm at a young age, but as I grew up in the firm with Alex and everybody else, more and more challenges appeared with traditional marketing. One being cost. For those who are in traditional marketing or have done it, TV is expensive, production is expensive, billboards are expensive. It is all expensive, high cost, and it's constant, and they're long contracts, right? You don't usually just go up and down on it. Next thing is personalization. It's not personal to anybody. You may have a great ad like Bongo, who again, Bongo connected with me. I would have probably hired Alex if I saw Bongo and had been in a wreck. But it doesn't connect with everybody, so it is a struggle. And then third is attribution. So that is one thing when we talk about what we're trying to do now is trying to be able to attribute every case to a source, where it came from, when it came in, what time it came in. And so that's something that was a struggle back then and still a little bit now. It's a lot easier because you have trackable numbers. You can do a lot of different things with traditional now, but attributing your cases and the costs and everything to a billboard back in 2008 wasn't easy.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about, honestly, and it's not just our firm, but, obviously, once again, guys, I started back in 2001, and, all we knew was traditional marketing, right? And I tried to absorb everything about traditional marketing. And pretty much if you look at any firm from whatever your state is, there's usually 4 or 5 firms that are attempting to do the same thing. And so you are trying to figure out, how you can differentiate yourself from those other firms. But the truth is that I think most of the firms that did really well were, it was just a blitz campaign, to be honest with you. The person who spent the most money, who was on the radio the most, on the broadcast television the most, was involved in their community, who was pretty much everywhere. But where we are today, and traditional obviously served me well. I mean, we are a brand in Alabama. There's no doubt. I didn't even know that you could be a brand, or a law firm could be a brand. I guess an individual is also a brand. But with traditional marketing, and I'm still traditional. You see me carry my piece of paper. That there's some challenges with it. And like Mitri, you can build a brand, and you can have some top mind awareness, but, I always think, the last time I was in a fender bender, I was 16 years old, so 40 years ago. And if there was someone else in Alabama advertising for 40 years, I would have never needed his legal services. So I would be someone that was not a customer for him. And which kind of, moved me, like I said, and we're kind of bouncing all around the place, but around 2008 and 2009, and we're going to kind of go into the billboard strategy. I knew the phone book was dying. Actually, my cousin is the one who sold me the phone book ads. He had a good job. I called him and I said, hey, I can't do the phone book anymore. And to be honest with you, I don't think he's spoken to me in 15 years, even though I told him, I said, print is dying and I've got to do something different. And hence, I was fortunate enough, I got a couple of good cases. I was able to resolve them, and that was kind of when I went all in on the billboards after I did my homework. And as a result of it, in Alabama, honestly, I've been nicknamed the Billboard King. Look, we have a lot of billboards. We have probably 2,000 billboards. I know it's at least 2,000 in the Southeast. I hear it every day. You know, you can't go down and there's jokes. But as a result of it, you know, I spend most of my nights, honestly, I know that we have brand awareness, but is there brand loyalty in legal services? And I don't know. And I haven't found anything to support brand loyalty. And that's when, you know, we're going to talk about this strategy and kind of how now we've moved it away from the traditional sense of the world.
Just to give him a little shout out on being Billboard King.
Who is that son of a gun?
I think that's one cool thing that has come from all of this for Alex and for the firm is kind of a little bit like all these memes came out, I would say between like 2010 and we still see them now. You know, here's another one. Someone threw up. Pretty good. So from the billboards.
Yeah, well, what I wanted to say before we get into this digital explosion, and I'm being serious, about half the advertising or marketing that we got was basically free because most of the stuff, because I guess we had such a brand, we had so much brand relevance and everyone knew who we were, is on their own, unbeknownst to us. People would just be creating everything. I mean, that was created. I didn't create that. And even today, you know, somebody will send me something. Did you see this or did you see that? You know, there's a picture of you. There's a picture of Mars, and the only two things are a Waffle House and your billboard. I mean, there was this young lady who went into a cave. She does cave diving, and not cave. I mean, she visits caves in Alabama, and she knew one of my employees, and they took our little like mini billboard, and she pretended like it was in the cave. And I mean, it's just we get a lot of free advertising from it, and I mean, I would say that's been pretty good.
Yeah, it is good, and it's fun. There's always good stuff that comes out of it. But you know, where we're going is really where we're, you know, what we're here to talk about today is this massive kind of digital explosion that really, I'd say about since 2018, we've really been trying to wrap our hands around.
Well, you know what? So I want to be very honest. Things were really, really good up until about 2017. We had one of our best years ever. We had a dominant brand. We honestly were getting 1 out of every 10 cases in Alabama. I think per capita, we probably were as well known in the state as any lawyer has ever been in a state. But I saw it starting to change in 18. And you know, if you kind of think about that, you know, the social platforms, I mean, Facebook had now been around for 10 years. Obviously, everybody knows that, you know, PPC came in October of 2000. It was a quarter a click. When people ask me what is one of my biggest regrets, I would say that not understanding, you know, the level of PPC and not taking advantage of it as early as 2000. But, you know, we can Monday morning quarterback, that's all we want. But, and then I watched it continue to deteriorate. And then all the other lawyers who kind of did what I did, you know, for some reason I'd run into them or they'd call me and they're like, what are you doing, Alex? I mean, things are not working. And most people, what they did is they just went and started doubling down and spending more money, probably including myself. But regardless of what we did, we were losing market share. And this is just my humble opinion. I think if it wasn't for the digital explosion, and all this stuff that you see now, lawyers moving from state to state, me partnering up with other lawyers, that stuff didn't exist. Everybody was really, really happy. Other than Morgan, I don't really know too many firms that really went outside their state. But as the digital explosion happened, it has forced people to look in different places, look in different practice areas, partner up, and hence, we're living that today. And for the last 5 years, we've done everything in our power to try to understand the digital space, and it's still challenging. But about a year ago, and we worked with a lot of good people, and we worked with some not good people, and we tried to learn from every situation, but we brought it in-house in around August of 23. So it's been over a year, and we still have our own challenges in-house, but I do feel better about where we're going and the direction we're headed and the people that we've hired to make sure every dollar we spend that we're doing it in front of the right people. And we're going to talk a little bit about the digital explosion. For most people that don't know, Mitri is I'm second cousins with his father. We were very close. He's actually been with me for, I think, 16 years. He was a sophomore, and his dad said, "Give my son a job." And I've done my very best. I see him as a younger brother, or I see him as my son sometimes. I call him my nephew, but he's gone from taking out the trash 16 years ago to where he is, and it's much deserved beyond words. But he has been so helpful, and I knew I had to allow him to somewhat take the reins. Obviously, we work together, but he really has a really good grasp of what we're doing in the digital space. And I'm going to turn it to Mitri.
Thank you. I don't know if my grasp is people here that I know, but I'm trying my best to continue to be good at it. And something Alex mentioned earlier, talking about people the expansion of being able to go to any state, et cetera. It really started with digital. And, this quote actually here says it really well. Small or large business, due to the digital space, you can now reach consumers everywhere, anywhere and everywhere at any time. And that is a huge game changer. But any lawyer in here is going to understand this, and any marketer in here is going to understand this. How consumers finally decide what they're going to purchase or what service they're going to use, which plumber, which lawyer, whatever it is, that journey is erratic, right? It is not as simple, and we picked this out because we're talking about digital and impressions and views and everything. This post here got 2.5 million views, and she makes it's actually very funny to read through the whole thing, which we're not going to do today, but she's like, "We all hope you see the ad, you click the ad, you hire us. You see our billboard, you call our number, we're the lawyer for you." We know that's not the case. We learn it's not the case. And she goes on to walk through 34 steps, essentially, of how it goes, right? They see your ad, they go back to it later, they forget about you, they remember you, they scroll by you. Oh, then it pops up again. They forget to click all the way through the chat submission. So you get like a half-empty chat submission. I know everybody has received one of those where there's like 5 digits of a number before you set it to where only full numbers could come through, because we've all done that before. I know I did that, and it is embarrassing when you get like 5 digits of a number. Learned my lesson there. But she goes on to kind of list these 34 steps until finally they decide on you, right? And so what we've been trying to figure out for a while now, but heavily the last year is, and Alex, you mentioned this earlier, how do we make sure that we are relevant to the consumer when we actually need to be? With traditional, with traditional, you have low frequency because it is expensive. Yes, Alabama, we're an anomaly, but in our other markets where we have traditional, we don't have as many billboards. Lower frequency, but we have high relevance, right? Because they see us. But the problem is that is all occurring before the accident happens. So, they're aware of us, they see us, but they don't need us. So we're really not important to them until they need us. So the hope is with digital, is to get out in front of them at, what we call activation, which is, when they're in an accident. And so where you are high frequency, because we know how heavy you can go in a digital push and how relevant you can be. But the goal is to get in front of them, and we're doing a lot of different things to try to get there, which we're going to talk through as we continue here. But that's been kind of us trying to figure out the client journey, getting in front of people with the right intent. So dollars are spent correctly, dollars are spent wisely, and then we're able to help as many people as we can along the way. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, the thing about, look, the way that look, we still do some traditional, but obviously, the traditional has always been for everyone. We call it a spray and pray campaign, right? I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, you spend a lot of money, you put it out there. Are you really relevant to them? They can go by your billboard 100 times, 1,000 times, but if they're not in an accident, you're not relevant to them at that moment. I mean, the only thing you are to them is a brand, and maybe you don't have any brand relevancy. Now, look, in Alabama, it's a little bit different, but really outside Alabama or wherever you practice, outside your, a city, a county, depending on, honestly, how relevant you are in your own space, anywhere else, everyone is equal footing. I mean, I am no relevant than anyone in this room than anybody in any other state other than Alabama. It just doesn't exist. So if this is done correctly by any firm, I think you can be successful, or at least increase your chances of getting some cases.
So as Alex mentioned, no more spray and pray. We want to send the right message to the right person at the right time. And
Mitri, giving an example of the right message to the right person at the right time, where we said where they are in the process, remember?
Yeah, I mean, you want to make sure it's, and you may have to help me here because I may.
Yeah, you remember, like, if they're already in activation or we've already got, a lead from someone.
Yeah, and your consumer.
Like our partners,
Yeah, so, consumers have really three things, right? They have a goal they're trying to achieve, they have a desire, they have a problem. And, we are fortunate to get leads from everywhere, digitally, traditionally, we have referrals. And those people generally are coming to us after their accident, right in the middle of it. So their problem, I say it's a problem. Some may say it's a desire to get money from an accident, but I say they have a problem. They've been in a wreck and they need help.
But in this space, it's always problems, goals, and desires.
Yeah, problems, goals, and desires. And so to kind of get the right message to the right people at the right time, we have continued, and we're continuing to work on it, but kind of building a tech stack that involves everything from, I call it our central nervous system. We're heavily involved with HubSpot. So we use HubSpot across everything we do when it comes to our marketing. So all of our stuff, if you are a referral partner to us, if you're our PPC, our digital, everything runs through HubSpot to kind of help us with this client journey. And some of the things that we use, again, our PPC, we do some programmatic. Obviously, we're spending on social. So it's making sure that we have all the tools in our belt to get that message out there to everybody at the right time. Another thing that we do when it comes to, making sure we take care of our clients is, we're actually partnered with Attorney Share. And so we even take it the next step to where we've actually integrated with some outside partners to where if we can't help somebody, we get them out to the right place. And the good thing about them is all the lawyers in there are vetted. So we know that any client that comes to us, we're still able to track all their attribution, how it got to us, where it came from, what the result is, but we make sure we get them to the right home. So I did want to shout them out here because they have been a big part of this digital boom that we've been in.
Look, I mean, the amount of money that it's interesting to me that you would think that back to the traditional sense that, outdoor advertising is still really, really popular, and I do think there's a place for it, and obviously, we will stay in that. But broadcast television, even though the eyeballs are not there, they still, want to charge you an arm and a leg, depending on the market. Radio stations want to charge you. And I think we have just made a decision that we want to take some of those dollars and allocate those dollars to this type of model, a tech stack, to basically anytime we feel like there's any touch points with our firm, we want to place ads and we want to chase them in the journey of catching them at the right time, again, with the right message, hoping they interact with us and eventually becoming a client.
And I'm realizing now that we're actually missing a slide, which is slightly embarrassing. So to kind of go along with this.
Yeah, just tell them. Yeah, tell them.
Yeah, something we wanted to show you with what we're trying to do and all the different things, and like Alex just said, is getting it in front of them at the right time. That's kind of the big message here, right, is to get these ads in front of them at the right time. In the first 8 months of the year, we have put out over 115 million impressions. It's on paid. It does not include any traditional impressions that we're tracking or any organic social that we're tracking. And over 225,000 clicks have come from those impressions. So it is just a constant push to get impressions out there, get in front of the eyeballs at the right time.
Hey, look, our business is, I know we're headed in the right direction. Our case acquisition is up. I don't know if I mentioned this. I'm sorry if I did. We get about 3,500 to 4,000 cases monthly. Obviously, we feel that implementing this and continuing to work on it for the past year has, substantially increased our business, which hence it puts you in tremendous growth mode, which, obviously, you got to hire more attorneys and, your costs are going to be more and more. So, we're in continuous growth mode, but our cost per acquisition is as low as it's ever been in the craziest times. And I do give credit to my marketing team and look, and everybody that's associated, our data scientists, anybody and everybody who's helping us to try to compete. And in the end, I don't ever think you can beat Fortune 500 companies. They obviously have some very smart people and a lot more money than we have. And so we are trying to do and emulate some of the things that corporate America is doing, honestly, at the scale that we can do it. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair, I think. So we appreciate y'all today for letting us come out here and try to give y'all some information. So thank you, guys. I know everyone is excited for Michael Phelps, like I said, and we've kind of ran over. So,
look, and one more. And look, and I mean this is seriously. There's a lot of people in this room that know me, but I guess we have one small secret sauce that we can't share. But as a general rule, look, we are willing to share, and we always will share any information. Or, you have a question. Mitri and I will, especially Mitri on this part, will share any information, tell you what we're doing, how we're doing it, what the platforms are. We want everybody to be successful. There's enough cases. You can't get every case. So, it's all, there's
enough.
Millions of them a month.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.